Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the New Era Superintendents podcast, where we are saving American education one podcast at a time. And we're glad to have a leading figure in American education with us this morning, Dr. Jim Capolupo, Philadelphia Eagles fan, and he's feeling good today. I don't want to put words in your mouth, sir, but it's Monday morning. What's your view of the world this morning when you think about Sunday?
Well, first, Matt, I appreciate you having me on. And welcome to fellow educators out there. I know you're from all around the country and you have rooting interest, but I feel really good about an Eagles win yesterday. So I want to raise your budgets by having you place a tiny wager on the Super Bowl so you can, take care of your family and all of that. But let's get back to work, man.
All right, so that's a prediction, and you heard it. You heard it here. Dr. Capolupo was 2014 Superintendent of the Year, National Superintendent of the Year, an honor from National Association of School Superintendents, and 2015 Pennsylvania Superintendent of the Year. Well, congratulations on those honors, and he remains dedicated to New Era's mission. We share this common spirit of wanting to make sure every student achieves proficiency in math and reading, and we want to do whatever it takes to make that happen. But in that light, the remarkable story of Jim Capolupo's leadership is he made it happen. We're going to talk about that for a few minutes. The stats they speak for themselves. I'm going to say they're phenomenal, which they are. 100% of students in his district that started in kindergarten, read on grade level all the way through fourth grade. 100% of students graduate from high school. 100% of those graduates were accepted into post-secondary education. These are remarkable achievements in the world of achievement. Dr. Capolupo, we'd like to just give you the floor to speak to that, because many people will hear that and say, well, that couldn't happen. What happened? What's the story?
Well, first of all, I didn't think it could happen either. I wasn't a believer in any of this. It was a school board who convinced me, and they were very business oriented, not education oriented, that goals should be minimal. How many times do we get 10, 12 goals, even 5 or 6 goals? They said, Jim, you're going to have one goal. I go, great. Wow. What is it? Well, you're going to get 100% of students to read. I said, what? Which one? By when? They said, well, first grade. I said, hold on. First grade, 100%. They said, yep. I said, impossible. And how many years do I have? They said, well, 3. I said, well, first of all, let's change the grade to grade 5. They said, no. I said, change it to grade 7. Anything. And we finally agreed on grade 4 in 5 years. So that was the bar. And that bar is still pretty high. And I said, well, what about exceptions? They said, stop. Let's not talk about exceptions now. I said, so how many more people do I get? None. You have the same amount of people. However, we'll buy resources in terms of if you need a special textbook or some professional development, we'll give you that. I said, great. And in addition, you want 100% kids being accepted into college. So what did I have to start with? Well, at the time, 58% of kids had gone to college. We were a suburban community outside of Philadelphia, 4,000 students, $72 million budget, 2 communities, about 27,000 people in those 2 communities, 5 buildings, 2 elementaries, a middle school, and a high school. We added 1 more building. And the need for change was the board came up with, how come smart kids get to 4th grade and they still can't read? I really didn't have a good answer for that. They just get passed along, and that's not an answer a board wants to have. And they said, so, Jim, what's the acceptable failure rate about reading? I said, well, it shouldn't be any. So we wrote the goal, every child must read on grade level by the end of 4th grade. And our slogan was that. And we put that slogan everywhere. We put it in the town on the light posts. We had banners. We had business cards for every employee. And that was the conversation. The problem was, how do we do it? The principals were not necessarily on board. So I said, okay, well, everybody puts things on your plate and nobody takes things on. I'm going to take some things off. You're going to have 1 goal. And this is the goal. All I want you to observe is reading. That's it. And we're all going to read Good to Great by Jim Collins. And we broke that book down into chapters, and different parts of our leadership population presented that. So all the administrators got on board, and we had to make sure we had the right assessments to measure progress. And we did this like a business, quarterly progress that we reported to the schools, reported to the community. And we decided that our teaching staff were elementary certified. Moving forward, we're going to require 3 certifications: elementary, reading, and special ed. We would only start interviewing people with that. However, we still had the staff to deal with that didn't have those qualifications. So we worked with University of Pennsylvania, and we developed a special ed and reading program. So even though it wasn't a certified program, they got enough that they were all trained. And we did that quickly. We stopped all other staff development and gave them the tools. And we wanted to make sure that they knew which tool of the toolkit to use with which child. We didn't structure that, but they knew reading recovery. They knew everything possible. And we got to the point where if a student couldn't read by maybe the end of 3rd grade, their curriculum was reading. Math, bathroom, and lunch. As long as the parents bought into that, we took everything else away.
I'm going to jump in because you took everything else away. And at the outset of New Era, the premise that seemed too simple, even simplistic to me, was that focusing on math and reading as non-negotiables, proficiency in math and reading as non-negotiables, was too simple or too simplistic because there's so much else. And yet you did that. So is it a true premise that if we get proficiency in math and reading, everything else has its best shot? Success and everything else is more likely. If we miss this, success and everything else is less likely. Is that a true premise?
It's a true premise. I mean, and plus the cost to intervene with a junior in high school. What if they can't read? How much are we going to spend? There's a cost factor. And look, if you graduate from high school, you can't read, and you get a job that doesn't read. Let's say you're the French fryer at McDonald's. On the wall, there is a chart with words on it that they have to read to cook the French fry. So there's very few jobs that pay of any sort to sustain yourself and a family if you can't read. So we said, the buck stops here. Now, that's with parent permission. If they said, well, we want to have art, we want to have phys ed, okay, you can have it. So we had to teach the art teachers and the phys ed and gym teachers about reading. So they were trained to integrate reading into their other content area.
Across the U.S., according to the national statistics, for 40 years plus, we've had a crisis of proficiency, and spending has increased dramatically, but achievement scores have stayed flat. Somebody might look in on this. Non-educators do look in on this, and let's say forget about the politicians for the moment, because they have motivations that might be skewed. Let's just say an observer, a parent, a community member is looking in and saying, hey, look, here in the US, we built the most expensive race car ever built, and we put more money into its development every year, but the engine doesn't start. This is the most fundamental failure that we could have. But the general don't look in on this, but maybe even our practitioners don't look in on this and say that about, these dismal proficiency statistics. Now you overcame that. But we have single-digit proficiency in the most disadvantaged communities, and we have 20 and 30% proficiency nationally in 4th, 8th, and 12th grade. So I think the question that you've answered it in practice, but the question now is still live in our education today. What's going wrong? What's happening here that we built the most expensive race car ever built with the most sophisticated development, and the engine doesn't start? Meaning kids can't read and do math. What's happening here?
Well, first of all, you have to have laser-like focus on what it is you want to accomplish. And sometimes there's too much on the plate to do that. Second, You have to have a relentless will to get the job done. So will plus focus, and then persistence to not give up. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to tick a lot of the listeners and viewers here off, that throwing more money into this is not the complete answer. Of course, we need enough teachers. Of course, we need instructional materials. Of course, we need good facilities. But focus, will, persistence. Plus, Matt, you opened with that, Dr. Capolupo. I didn't do this.
What do
I
you
was
mean?
the facilitator. I didn't get these results. A team of people that I hired got the results. Just like a sports team, we had great locker room togetherness. On the chart that you're going to see, there's on the left side, moving to the right, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter in our last year, and you'll see the amazing results that we had with will, focus, and persistence. So can it happen? Yes. Now, we did hire extraordinary teachers, and the ones that were not, we built capacity. Again, we had a hitting coach, a batting coach, a pitching coach. We had enough trainers to boost them up. And then we had accountability with the principals, totally responsible. And their raise was based upon this. I put pictures on their computer screen of the kids that were below basic and not making the grade. And when we had meetings, we didn't talk about assemblies. We didn't talk about construction of a new playground. We talked about those kids by name. Where are they today? And that's it.
Stakeholder investment in this sounds like a critical component. You had to have everybody on board with this goal. People had to sacrifice their priorities to this priority.
Right. And what I did was I told everybody, look, I will do whatever I can to give you an incentive for this, but I just don't know. But I said, I need you to work with me and help me. So we had the bus drivers asking little Johnny, what are you reading? We had the traffic guards saying, hey, I see you're taking some books home. We had the cafeteria workers giving them a slice of pizza and go, what, are your parents going to read to you tonight? So talk about buy-in. It was top to bottom. I had every administrator go to the elementary schools for at least 20 minutes a week and pick out one of these children that were not making it and read to them. So we all, business manager, HR, we all worked with, I wouldn't say work, we read with to show them the importance. The real work was done by the teachers and by the reading specialists. But we were all visible and invested in this.
And persistence in the message, persistence in will, persistence in the focus, all of it sounds like all of that was critical. And it makes sense. It's crystal clear. It makes sense. So maybe a rapid fire series of questions as we round the bend. Thoughts on the impact of competition to public schooling in the immediate future? How do you see that?
Again, I know some of my colleagues are not going to like this, but competition is good. And self-competition is the best. I told the board I told the board, I want you to tear up my 3, 4, 5% raise contract, and I want you to put me fully on merit. And they gave me 38 metrics, mostly reading, but everything else that you could think, acceptance in the college and all these metrics, student performance. So when I changed my contract, I showed it to my administrative team and I said, I want you to come with me. I want you to take the risk. And then I went to the teachers and I said, look, all of you, you're all unionized, and I know this is a little different, but I want you to know that I am going merit, the administration's going merit, and you're doing all the work. Mm-hmm. So I will convince the board to pay you if you can achieve results higher than what the contract says. They said no. I said, fine, but you can't get mad at us if we do well on your backs. So one person stood up and said, I believe in Jim. Let's go. And I said, shut down. He will really do this. So, it is a change. It's a very change element to do that.
Yeah. It's not going to be embraced by everybody, but
No.
who knows? Who knows?
Who knows?
Because there are superintendents who are risk tolerant and are willing to be disruptive, and we're actually looking for those superintendents because, like you, they are the ones who will make a difference. Not that it's not the only way, but it's a powerful way, maybe the most, to make a difference, is to be willing to be disruptive and to take risk, take leadership risk. Okay, we keep politics out of the new era world. That being said, if you had one message for presumed incoming Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, if you had something for her, what is it?
Well, first, I appreciate her background with leadership and management skills. So that's terrific. I would like to offer my time to sit down with Linda, Secretary McMahon, and walk her through some of these fundamentals. And I had done this before. By the way, I was at the U.S. Department of Education on 4 occasions presenting literacy and leadership to Deputy Secretary of K-12. I was also invited to the White House on two different projects. And the last one was to meet with the White House advisor on education in the White House. I had an hour with that person representing the superintendents on the eastern half of the country. So I said, you need to take some notes because I'm going to give you a crash course in education. I would love to have the ability to affect change across the country. I love being a teacher, but the influence with how we did this, I wish we could replicate. And the other good story is that there's a fun ending to it. When we hit the target goal, I told the teachers, don't bring your lunch to school. We're going to give you a bag lunch. So we actually put them on school buses, took them to a country club, gave them a huge meal, and sent them home early, which they loved. We're all in this together.
And it's interesting that these are disruptive mechanisms in education as we do it, but they are common sense. People respond, and they were well-deserved rewards. So that sounds great. Last 2 things. What's your message for superintendents right now about a message of support and a message of action?
I have 2, and I'll give it to you in form of quotes. One is start by doing what is necessary, then move to what is possible. And then you will find your capable next step is to do the impossible. That quote is from St. Francis of Assisi. The other one is the other story piece I want to give you is of hope, of persistence. It's a Tim Allen quote from the movie Galaxy Quest. Never give up, never surrender. And with those 2 messages, I want to wish all my colleagues out there to keep the good fight. And what if it was your child that couldn't read? What do you say about that? Would you want them in your district, in your teacher's classroom? So it's your child. And we all have to look at it that they all are our own children. So let's work. Let's do all this because we can. We should.
That's beautiful. And we're saying here at New Era, whatever it takes, which is a punctuation to everything you've just shared. And so we look forward to speaking with you again very soon. Closing question. What is your Super Bowl prediction?
Well, first, I want to thank you, Matt, for pushing New Era out and doing this kind of work that takes us into, new ground breaking, first century. Have we really changed? I hope we can do something different. And I like to see our public schools feel more like a private school at a public school price. I think we can do it. And I hope with your help and your leadership, that messaging can go around the world. But Super Bowl. Okay, it's the Eagles in the NFC. Now on the AFC, Kansas City, not Baltimore. Could be Buffalo. I really want Andy Reid back again. So Kansas City, Eagles, and this time we win with a David Akers field goal with 1 minute and 42 seconds on the clock. Was that specific enough for you, Matt?
Almost. We'll take it. We'll take it. And so we'll get together to see what happens about that. But
Let's go.
thanks. Thanks. Look forward to seeing you again soon.
Take care. Thanks, everybody. Keep doing the good work out there.
Right on.